Gnosis. Let's begin. So talking about, this is the third week of the meditation chamber course. Here's my book. There it is. The official meditation chamber course. So, this week we're going into the stage of pranayama. So we were going in last week, the first week we were sort of introducing everything, but last week we were talking a lot about relaxation, and it was rhythmic breathing, wasn't it? That's right. And then we were talking about relaxation before that in asana. So now we're talking about very specifically pranayama, or the control of the pranic energy. So when we're talking about pranayama, well, first we sort of have to have a bit of an understanding. So the first thing is prana is not oxygen. It's a different thing. Yeah. When we're working with oxygen, or the energy, or the what do you call that? Is oxygen a molecule? Is that the correct term? Molecule, I think it's right. No, it's not. It's a chemical compound. I can't remember what you call it scientifically speaking, but oxygen is the active ingredient in the air that we breathe, but that's only the physical reality. There is, of course, an internal reality. The internal reality is that within the environment of everywhere where we, in this world we live, move, and have our being, what's actually more important is the vital aspect, or astral aspect, which is the prana. And so while we have the air around us and the oxygen, internally we actually have the prana, which is the life force which exists within all things. In fact, most of these sorts of, there's all these like sort of spiritual devices people are making, like special fancy Tesla coils, and there's that thing that Kim has, it's like a, that thing that Kim has is kind of like it's like a golden phallus, that he just sort of rubs around. He's got that little vibrating stick, like this, and it's made of 24 karat gold, and he just rubs it on his face. How have you not seen it? You live with the guy for years.
No idea.
Hey, Juliana, how are you? Yeah. Boa noite.
Did you just started?
Literally just started, like 2 minutes. Yeah, we're talking about prana. Prana. Yeah. Anyway, well, don't worry about it then. But all these sort of healing devices, and there's all these different healing devices people are making, special Tesla coil things. They all are designed to try and work with this prana, with this life force. There's this energy there that surrounds everything, that is within everything. That's within you, that's within me, that's within the air. It's within absolutely everything, because it is cosmic energy. It is light, it's heat, it's magnetism, it's life, it's movement. Everything that lives has it within it. Yeah? When you set something on fire, you release the trapped prana that exists within it. Yeah? That's why things conduct electricity, heat, power. Yeah? When a body dies, the prana exits through it. It no longer has that life within it. You know what I mean? Like, it's interesting, people are constantly trying to, make these fantastic AI robots and everything, but they're just like dead things. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're just dead, and they feel creepy, and that's why there's always like an innate fear inside of you, like when people were writing like the golden age of science fiction, which is from about the 50s, I believe, up until the 70s or something, we have like Isaac Asimov and Philip K. Dick and these guys. They wrote a lot about that. They wrote about the existentialist crisis that people would face with robots, because they're not actually real. You know what I mean? Like, it's like a dead object, which you're then giving a mind, but it doesn't have this life inside of it. So imagine a thing that's dead, like a dead body, that then walks around. It's actually kind of creepy and weird. Now, what makes that creepy and weird is that it doesn't have prana. Just so that we're clear, in Atlantis, they knew how to make what they called automatons. So they actually used to make they used to put the power, the pranic force, the life force of plants and of animals into sort of robotic constructs that they had made, into these bodies that they had made. And they actually made like robots, you know what I mean? But the problem was these things actually had life inside of them, because they had an elemental within them. They had living power and potential. So they weren't like what we're making now, which are these kind of automated things. Do you understand what I mean? There was real life inside them. So I know it's a bit of a sort of a digression, but I just wanted to mention it. So this is it. This cosmic energy, this force, this power, this movement, this life. I guess you could say, really, without wanting to sound cheesy, life force. It's the life force. You know what I mean? Within everything. It's the real power that is life, you know, the energy that is life. So that exists within all things. So what we're trying to teach tonight is how to harness that force, like how to work with that force, how to increase that force inside of us, because there's this beautiful thing that Samael says when he's describing prana, and I'm just going to read it out because I think it's really wonderful. When he's describing the prana and pranayama, he says some beautiful things. So first, when he's describing prana, he says prana is the sum total of the energy manifest in the universe. Prana is cosmic energy. Prana is vibration, electric movement, light and heat, universal magnetism and life. Prana is the life that beats in each atom as it does in each sun. In Gnostic esotericism, prana is the cosmic Christ, or cosmic Christos. Prana is related with the mind, linking it to will, the individual soul, and through it to the Supreme Being. The place of prana is the heart, and there exists specifically only one prana, but it fulfills multiple functions. And so there's this beautiful point when he's talking about, therefore, how do we work with prana? So to work with prana is the practice of pranayama, because pranayama, yama means to control, and prana, which can also mean breathing, is a Sanskrit word, so it has multiple meanings, you know. And so prana can be this energy, but it can also mean breathing. So through the control of breathing, we can work with this life force, yeah? So this is how he describes pranayama. Pranayama means the control of prana. Prana is the magnetic current of breathing. Prana is the vehicle of the mind. The mind cannot function without prana. That's why the consciousness, which expresses itself through the mind, cannot perceive or function without prana. So that's very important. So while oxygen coming in is feeding our physical body, the prana is coming in and feeding actually the mind and the internal bodies. Like when we see a Kabbalah, we have all the different regions of the Kabbalah. The prana is what feeds the internal structure, substructure, yeah? That's why if I'm not taking on any prana, if I'm not doing any form of pranayama, I'm not really working with the prana, then those bodies just remain in a fairly simple state, if you understand. If I'm just getting what I get from breathing, I'm not going to increase any of my internal potential or force of my astral body or of my chakras. They're all just going to remain base level. You understand what I mean? Because we're just getting the same normal amount. So we're talking about developing this internal system, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. Okay. So here's the big one. Two things make the mind error. Desires produced by the latent impressions of latent impressions of the emotional center and the breath. When one is controlled, the other is controlled automatically. Of these two, we first start with the control of our breath. So this is very interesting. So he points out that two things, the mind error, so the mind itself, it comes to error, meaning that we can't concentrate. That's what it means, the mind errors. It means that the beautiful lake of the mind has this, sort of, you're supposed to be this beautiful sort of serene lake that can perfectly be still and then reflect the stars above, which is the consciousness and reality. The mind, because of all of its desires, becomes full of all of these ripples, and then it can't concentrate. So you understand, latent desires is like that. It means that when I watch a television show or I see something on my phone, and then that impression causes a desire in the subconscious. So I might see, for instance, a nice car, or I might see a nice new pranic energy device, or I might see, a new show that's going to start, or something like this. I might see something about an actor, and what it does is it causes a little desire to come up in the subconscious, and then that, because we're not conscious of ourselves, because we don't control the mind, because we don't value concentration properly as a society, we're not taught to observe that. What happens is that then sits in the subconscious, in our emotions, and then it causes the mind to be disturbed. So the mind starts going, that thing, I just sort that thing out, I really wish I had that new thing, or I'm feeling a little bit anxious, and the mind starts to go a bit crazy. I'm a bit anxious. And then I start thinking about this, I start thinking about that. So that's what it means by latent impressions. Yeah, so impressions that have not been transformed sit in the mind and then cause the mind to go crazy. The other thing that causes problems in the mind is the breathing. So when the breathing is not regular, Yeah? When we don't have rhythm inside the breath, when we're not relaxed, the breath is erratic. We don't have it. And we don't really notice this until we actually spend some time observing ourselves for the day. And then you notice that when you're stressed, when your mind's a bit mad, your breath is completely out of control. There's no control in the breathing. The breathing is either shallow or it's, as I said, it's disharmonious. There's no harmony in the breathing technique. So, as I said, this is why pranayama is so important, because through this breath control, we can control prana coming into the body, and we can also control the state of mind, meaning that we can use this as a springboard into concentration, the most important of Gnostic practices. Yes? Okay. All right, so let's talk a little bit about how let's talk a bit more about the difference between simply deep breathing and pranayama. Yeah? Because a lot of people sort of go and you teach, okay, like for instance, if you want to, if a person's like hyperventilating or, losing their mind a little bit, deep breathing can sort of help in that moment, but that's not pranayama. It's actually a different thing. In fact, there's a point here where he says, deep breathing is not the same as pranayama, even though it promotes good health. The beneficiary effects of deep breathing are due to its increased ingestion of oxygen, which influences the prana in the body. Authentic pranayama begins when the breathing is retained for a brief time between the inhalation and the exhalation. Pranayama prepares the mind for the practice of visualization and concentration. It will not be superfluous for us to dedicate some words to it. So, that's all I have to say from there. So, as I was saying, therefore, what differentiates just a deep breathing from pranayama? Because, if you're deep breathing, a lot of you would say, okay, I'm taking in more prana, therefore I'm practicing pranayama. That's not true. What we actually need to do is to hold the breath for a little bit. So we're breathing in and then pause and then out. And that time in which the prana, all of the air's come into the lungs and the prana is in there, we're actually increasing the amount of time that the lungs can extract prana, which is better than a deep breath. But to go one step further, we want to combine those two things. So tonight's practice, which is going to be this anyway, in tonight's practice, we're looking to, and in general we should be, practicing what's called a complete breath. And a complete breath uses all three parts of the lungs. The lungs are like big sort of triangles, And I kind of drew them like avocados. I didn't really intend it. I tried a few times and I just gave up. But they're sort of like triangles, and therefore they have like an apex and a middle. And as they go down, they get bigger. So at the bottom, the lungs are there's more space down here and the lungs are quite strong. So down near the belly, the lungs, I think the lungs you're talking about there, right? The lungs are larger, and then as they go up, there's less of the lungs. Now, what we should observe in ourselves is, again, self-observation being the absolute key of Gnosis. Where do we breathe normally? You understand what I mean? So normally, we sort of need to actually, during the day, actually try to take a moment and when we're not really paying, because when you pay attention, the problem is you tend to just sort of, it's like when someone says, oh, you're being watched, and you're like, oh, I'm now the best worker ever. Someone says, just act natural, and you're like, I am. Oh, hello, children. This is me being a natural parent. You're all so lovely and good today. Natural parenting. Yeah, so take a moment when you're not really supposed to be observing yourself, and observe yourself, right? And then observe where you breathe. Because what you'll find is you usually just breathe into one part of the lungs. Like, belly breathing is probably the best, which is the lower. That's the best for health. And I know that a lot of yogic institutions teach belly breathing. You should breathe in the lower abdomen, like that. And the reason for that is that's where you get the most air. So breathing in the lower part of the lungs, of course, is better. In the middle part, not so good. You don't take quite as much air. And if you breathe if you're only breathing in the very top of the lungs, that's not so good because you're actually only taking very short breaths. In fact, I remember when I taught this to one of my friends, he's the missionary in Ireland now, but when he very first started Gnosis back in Lemuria, just kidding, 10 years ago, I remember that he was only breathing up then. He's a very sort of skinny sort of man. He's sort of like one of those sort of, he's all sinew, like incredibly strong, but just like, he's just all angles, just bone and sinew, you know what I mean? Sinew the right word, just like thin muscles, like hooks for hands, But, I shouldn't say that on there. But I remember when he first did it, he realized he was only breathing like just up here. He always breathes so shallow. And when I taught him this process, like immediately when he started doing the complete breath, he actually started coughing a lot because he was a smoker as well. And he was coughing a lot because he was very rarely even using these lower parts of the lungs. And if you don't do that, it's also bad. I mean, obviously, not using the lower part of the lungs a lot can lead to sort of fluid buildup at the bottom of the lungs, which is pneumonia and stuff like that. And if we never use the upper part of the lungs, same thing. That what happens is you sort of get like stale air buildup. So practicing the complete breath or even an occasional cleansing breath is just a different version of the complete breath, is good for getting the lungs to go. So what we want to do is we want to fill all three parts of the lungs, yeah? So complete, but also add a retention of the breath to make it from just a big full breath to make it into pranayama, yeah? So like this. As I said, belly breathing like that, mid breathing, upper breathing, like that, yeah? Now, if you want to do this, you should start from the belly, yeah? So you breathe from the belly, and I find that one of the best ways when you first learn to complete breathe is to actually use your hands. So you start at the belly, you put your hands on your belly, and you first start by just breathing as much as you can into the belly. Come on, kids. Come on. It's practical class. Now, move them to the left. And now move you and let your shoulders, and try to sort of fill up, yeah? And then go right top. And move your shoulders, move everything. Move your back until that's as full as it can be. Like that. Hurt a little bit. And then out. So when you're using the complete lungs, you actually have to move your body a bit. Like, for instance, when you start with the belly, it's all pretty straightforward. You just move straight out, right? But then in the here, you have to sort of like push up a bit, and then to get right to the top of the lungs, you actually have to often kind of stretch out your arms and your back and actually allow space for the air to come in. So you're trying to do this. I'm not saying you have to do this all the time. I mean, it would be good if you could. It'd be really good for your health. Very good for your transmutation if you could do it all the time. But at least train ourselves to use all three parts of the lungs in our practices, in our meditations. And so we're trying to do that complete breath, filling all the way up. And always with that little retention, And so when I'm teaching you in class and we're doing this, the practice, for instance, of counting the breath, like in, hold, 1, out, hold, 2, in, hold, 3, like that. This is what we're doing. We're trying to do a complete breath. We're trying to fill the lungs up. We want as much prana in there as humanly possible. Yeah, and again, you'll see that's why when we're sitting here doing a meditation, I'm saying to you, make sure your back's straight, make sure you're sitting up straight. You know what I mean? Like when you're doing a meditation, you need to have the body in a good, because that's what I mean. I don't know if you've noticed, but if you try to do the complete breath when you've got a bad posture, it doesn't work. You try to do the complete breath when you're kind of hunched over, and it's like, because you can't, because your lungs, you're squishing the upper and middle part. You just can't use the upper and middle part. Same thing if you're like right back, like the way that, the way these guys sit in class nowadays, in the back of the chair like that. You try to do complete breath. You can't get to the mid, just the lower and the upper. It's a short breath. There's no air in there, Whereas when your posture's good, the neck's straight, the back's straight, the air can move in nicely. Yeah. See, so much air can fill into the lungs. So good. What you'll find, if you do this practice a lot, you will increase your air capacity. You'll also notice stuff too. Like I remember when I started doing it, the first thing I noticed is I was carrying too much weight on the front. Hello, because I started doing it and I feel the pressure, oh no, okay. It's one thing, because I don't like this about our society. Modern society is always changing its moral. Do you know what I mean? It used to be that, being a little bit chubby was good. It meant you had money and that you liked your food. Now it's like, oh no, you've got to be the skinny mini. But neither of them are correct. What you need to be is aware of your human machine. And if you're doing this breath, you're going to start, hello. If you're doing this big, strong breath, you're actually going to be really aware of your physical body. And you're going to be aware of your motor center. You're going to be aware of your instinctive center. And you're actually going to be aware, therefore, of when you are a little bit sick. Like, for instance, you'll be more aware of when there's phlegm. Because, for instance, if you're doing a big, complete breath, and this happened to me when I first started doing it, I'm an asthmatic. I remember I started doing the complete breath a lot. And because I wasn't breathing in certain parts of the lungs very often, and I wasn't breathing deeply and properly, I actually started getting all phlegmy, and that's when I started to notice that I wasn't very good with dairy and gluten and sugar so much, because they were increasing the phlegm. When I removed them, my breaths became stronger, I could use my airways better, I became more aware of funny swelling in my nose. My nose, it's not just about the mucus, but my nose actually swells on the inside when I eat certain foods, or when I'm working and I allow contagions, like for instance, cement dust or sawdust to enter into my lungs. And so I became way more aware of this swelling and all this sort of thing because I was using my breath correctly. That's why I'm saying this is such a good practice, not just because we'll talk a little bit more about the control of the breath in a minute, the pranayama and the pranic aspect, but even just in general, to be aware of your human machine in a natural way. That's the only way to work on the instinctive center. Yeah, not from a moral way. So where I'm going to go on this new special diet because it's what I saw. I'm going to go do this thing. It's just completely mechanical. I'm going to lose weight because I'm feeling bad about myself at the moment because I've been eating too much ice cream or something. As opposed to because I'm doing my complete breath and I start being aware of the fact that there's problems with my instinctive center. And then I'm overweight because I feel because I can't breathe properly. You know what I mean? And then we actually have a real impetus to do it. Just saying. It's really something quite fantastic. So as I said, we're filling the whole lungs. The lower, the middle, and the upper, completely filling the lungs with air. Then, again, what makes it pranayama is the retention. Holding that breath just for a moment increases the amount of time that the prana is brought into the body. And that takes us to our internal diagram. So what's going on there is what we're actually doing is we're starting to do this. So normally when we breathe, we're just breathing with the physical apparatus. We're just breathing with our lungs. We're breathing in oxygen. But when we start doing pranayama, we're starting to move energy up here. So we're actually starting to we're bringing prana into the body, but we're also beginning to move the actual sexual energy up the spine, like that. And it's going through from the coccyx up to the third eye, into the heart, along these two currents. And we all have these. Everyone has here inside themselves, these are what's called nadis. We've talked about them in different lectures, but still, we mention it again. These are the nadis. These are three most important nadis. You've got 72,000 nadis over the body, but these are the ones that are the really important ones. The chakras are made up of nadis, for instance. But when we start practicing pranayama, when we're retaining the breath, we're also moving our sexual energy at the same time. And what this will do is it'll start to open up these two channels on either side of our spine. These exist in the vital and astral body in both. And what they start to do is we're actually moving our energy. And if we're doing this correctly, as I said, if we're doing this complete breath often in our practices or even around just daily, when we're working, etc., within reason, then what begins to happen is this secondary system opens up, this energetic system opens up, and the energy starts to flow. And we're actually starting to change the direction of sexual energy. It's very important because the normal person's sexual energy is just going out all the time. And it's important, okay, of course, fornication being the most or the worst loss of the sexual energy, which is when we're actually fornicating and masturbating. That loses sexual energy the worst. But what else we're doing too is that in every aspect, we're just losing energy through desire as well. So throughout the day, when I'm when the mind is completely off and I'm thinking and all this sort of stuff, I'm just constantly living in these sensations and I'm losing my energy. You know, I've got to have something to eat. Oh, I've got to listen to this music. You know, like I knew a guy. He's a Gnostic man, and he was working as a delivery driver for FedEx in America. We didn't have FedEx here, do we? And he was working for FedEx, and he said that when he was first driving, he used to listen to classical music all the time. It's our friend Carl. Carl, he's an American from New Zealand, and I remember he said that he was delivering packages, etc. And he said he used to listen to classical music the whole time, or sometimes like little lectures from Raphael Bay in Perth. And he said though that eventually he started to realize when he was coming home from work, he was just completely spun out. Like he was just like, and he was tired, like really tired, you know, at the end of the day. You know, he'd work and he would just tell himself, oh mate, it was a big day. I had to deliver a lot of packages. I'm really tired. So many packages, you know. But after he started to actually do his meditations and he's working on himself, he's running a mission, I think it was Oregon, I believe. I can't know. It's about Boulder. I can't remember where that is. It was in Boulder, but I can't remember the name of the...
Colorado.
Is that Colorado? Yeah. I don't know if that's where he was at the time. I know he taught there for a while. Because I asked him about the chips. You know the chips? The Boulder chips?
The best chips in the world.
They're amazing. They're extremely expensive.
60 a kilo.
It's insane. But they taste so good. Do you know what I mean? Unfortunately, I just get the Aldi now. I can't do it. Anyway, but yeah, so anyway, but yeah, he said that what he began to realize when he was doing his mochas, his meditations and his practices, was that essentially he was actually spinning himself out. Even though it was classical music, he was overstimulating the mind. And so what was going on is he was actually looking for a sensation. Just like, you know, when we fornicate, it's a sensation, it's a sexual sensation, it's the strongest sensation there is. But at the same time, it's still a fornicatory psychology. It's just wanting another sensation. Oh, yeah, I'll listen to some music. And then when you get out of the car, the first thing, what do? You know, you're listening to music the whole way in the car, and then you get out, and then you go deliver the package, and you grab something to eat, and then you listen to this, and then look on your phone, and your energy is just constantly going out to the world. You're actually never just stopping. You're never, you know what I'm saying? You're never stopping. Your energy is always going out. One big feeling after another. Oh, I feel great. And then if you stop doing something, you start feeling kind of depressed. This is quite a common problem in our society now. Everybody's depressed, and no one's looking at the overstimulation at all. They're like, no, this guy's got ADHD, or that's what happened to my friend. My friend's like, I've got ADHD now. It's like, that's what all my problems were. And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I was about 5 times more hyperactive than you are in school, so don't know, you know? But everyone's got ADHD. It's the new black, you know? What?
Yeah, massive. It's like the biggest, it's a trend now.
Everyone's got it. Everyone's taking drugs, and everyone says they're fine when they're taking the drugs. It's not true. The drugs dull your brain. They make you a dullard. Anyway, medical misinformation. I'm sure I'm going to get done for that one. But it's true. It's true. So that's the whole thing, right? Is what he began to realize is the music actually was just another... He was in a state, if he woke up, and then it's like, breakfast, you know, and you put all the sweet stuff, like you'd have a sweet, lots of sweet things, and then jump in the car and have the coffee, you know, and you have like 4 coffees during the day, and the music blaring the whole time while you're driving. It's still classical music, so it's okay, right? And then he's driving on and he's dropping all the packages off, you know, and yep, and trying to get his done really quick. And then he comes home, and the first thing he doesn't come home, he turns the music on at home, like that, listening to the music, you know. And then by the time he goes to bed, he's just, you know, like he's just constantly taking impressions. Okay, yeah, he's not listening to doof music anymore, but the point is it's just constant. I want silence in the mind, but I never allow silence during the day. I'm never just driving and sort of watching things as they go past, relaxing, just trying to actually just focus on the road without having to do something else because I'm getting bored, you know, because of my ADHD. It's not a thing. It's not. You just need to learn to concentrate and relax, you know. Anyway, so as I was saying, when we start to actually transmute properly, doing this beautiful practice of transmutation, pranayama, then these channels start to open up, and then eventually the energy starts to quite naturally move on these channels. If we open them up properly, and the transmutation is very strong, we can completely change the direction of the energies, and then this will happen quite naturally all the time. When we're breathing, the energy will be moving up Ida and Pingala all the time. And eventually, once we awaken the Kundalini, which we've mentioned before is a process that can only be achieved through sexual alchemy, then that energy will move through the Sushumna, through the central channel, like that. Even more powerful and even better for the body. So, as I was saying, that's the process of the internal. So this pranayama has a really, really fantastic effect, in relaxing the mind, concentrating the mind, and in increasing the prana, cleaning the interior, because this system in us is all sort of dirty. All of the many, many lifetimes of fornication, everything has sort of, it's like all of these are covered in little dots, and as we transmute, we slowly clean out these wastes, and so the energy can move quite freely upon them. And this is something really fantastic. So this is one of the things we're trying to achieve as a Gnostic person, and can be achieved by a single person as well in the single transmutation. But the middle channel has to be done through the alchemy, through the sexual work. So, yeah. What else was I going to say? Yeah. When the prana is controlled, the mind becomes calm. Yeah, I already mentioned that anyway. Yeah. How do we feel? Any questions about that? Understand? Ready to practice moving the energy? As I find it strange that the practice is in here. The 6 paths of breathing practice is in here. I use this practice to go to the void. I did it for a long time, but it worked. It was a good practice. Which is to... Yes, that's right. It's from Chang Cheng Chi's Practice of Zen. Yeah, it's a marvelous, marvelous book here, which is the one of the books Samael studied in putting together his work, Zen work. So the first step is called the stage of counting the breath. Might do that another. We'll do that another time. We're just going to focus on the breathing work. I just think it's strange that it's in this particular one, because he just sort of puts it in there but he gives like 5 practices in this.
If you read it as well, it doesn't actually say to do complete breath and retention in that practice.
That's right. That's why. Yes. Yeah. Yes. We're going to just work with the complete breath tonight. So we're going to sit down. We do some complete breathing. Sitting and breathing in, filling completely the lungs with air, and just working with that, releasing and blowing. And what you'll find is you'll create or you'll build up a huge amount of prana, and that's so important for meditation for the 2 reasons that I said. One, it gives you the force, like the power and the practice to go further. You build up and you store all that prana. Then when you go to the later part of the practice where you're almost not breathing at all, there's huge amounts of energy there which really takes you deeper. I can say that from experience. But then the other side too is doing it properly also relaxes the mind. So actually gets the mind to a good state. Then the practice is really clear and really good. So we're going to do that.